Every show we bring you a martial arts celebrity. Today we have Mr. Randy Palmer. He is a second-degree black belt in Chung Taekwondo. He is former world kickboxing champion in the cruiserweight division, and he also owns South Austin Gym. From Austin, Texas, meet Randy Palmer. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Hey, you're world champion, and I know you started this when you were a child. How old were you when you started this?
About 5 years old.
About 5.
Yeah.
And what from 5 years old doing Taekwondo in a school in San Antonio, Texas, correct?
Yeah.
How do you go from there to world champion?
I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I used to watch the martial arts movies, like, a lot of us did back in that time.
Right.
And I remember watching the guys that would get beat up, and I would think, like, man, if I could just be as good as one of those guys on that show. And so I kept training, I eventually made my way to you. I guess maybe I was around 9 or something like that when I started training here.
Right.
And so started working out here, and I remember that looking at you guys when you were kickboxers back then, and I used to think that that was something that I'd want to do. So doing the training, pushing myself, eventually, that just seemed like the natural next step for me to take.
Coach, did you do any boxing?
I did.
Anything other than kickboxing and karate?
Yeah, I did boxing for a bit. It's like back in the time, it's like a little bit after the 80s when the huge kickboxing organizations weren't quite as popular. It was a lot easier to make money doing boxing. And the other thing is because I'd spent so much time focusing on my kicks, as it turns out, getting that other half, the hands, was huge too. And that way, that make me a more formidable kickboxer also.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I know you did martial arts first. You did Chung Taekwondo, and you worked with me for a while. And you got belts, and you did what we call point karate.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, and then you made the switch into kickboxing, and they are just two different creatures. I mean, they're two completely different animals. Now, what I'd like to know is why did you make the switch, and what got you to make the switch?
The switch, probably because I like things as close to reality as you can make it. So when you talk about martial arts, you have two different types of martial arts. You have a sport combat, you have sport martial arts, and then you have combat martial arts. With combat martial arts, you don't know who you're fighting, you don't know when you're fighting, you don't know how many people you're fighting. So the really only way to train for that is to do some type of like military training. So sport martial arts, you actually get in the ring, you exchange blows, punches, kicks. You can do it as hard as you can, but you do have the padding, so you can simulate what it's like to be in a real fight without actually having to be in that fight.
Right. Good answer. That's great. When did you start your professional kickboxing career?
I turned pro at age 23, if I remember right. Yeah, I was 23 years old. And I actually turned pro boxing before kickboxing. And I was on USA Tuesday Night Fights on a Chavez undercard.
All right, that was great.
That was a great night.
Yeah, was that boxing? Or?
That was boxing.
That was boxing. That's great. Now, have you done tournament karate? Have you ever done like point karate?
Oh yeah, I used to do the tournament, the musical forms, the katas.
Right.
It's all good stuff, and it really formed the basis like for my balance.
Yeah.
Some of the form, it's like, some of the things from that actually translate into professional fighting.
Right.
And I really felt like, doing the traditional martial arts has given me an edge.
Right.
Because throwing punches, throwing kicks, there's certain things you learn with your balance, how to shift your weight, from the traditional martial arts.
Right, exactly.
So when you actually switch into the ring, it's like, I've been doing a study prior to actually doing the professional, so it actually gives you an edge, in my opinion.
Right, exactly. So you did karate tournaments, point tournaments, and you've done professional kickboxing. What's the difference? What's the difference to you? I mean, explain the difference to point karate, actually, in competition, and the difference between kickboxing, actually in a ring, full contact.
Slightly, the rules are going to be slightly different. I'll say this: both types of fighting are very difficult. Point karate is more made for, I guess, how'd you say, like the point karate came about because each particular strike that you throw, each point that you get in karate is designed to be able to kill or maim. Right. So when you do a point karate tournament, if you throw a back fist, across the nose or something like that, or you hit someone in the eye, that's considered like a lethal or like a strike that could put the person down. So they stop, walk back to the lines. In kickboxing, it's a little different. You actually have to do damage to the person. Like you can't just play tag or touch the person.
Right.
With kickboxing, there's a time limit, and you fight from bell to bell. The only way out of the ring is down.
Yeah. All right. And okay. What was your most memorable fight? What fight did you have where you were just like, it was the proudest moment?
That's a hard call. I'd say probably my first pro boxing match would be a good one, and then my last kickboxing match are two good ones. To me, every fight's separate. Every fight's going to be a war. Mm-hmm. And when you're training for those fights, you always ask your body to do the unthinkable. because every time you get in the ring, you're going to ask your body to do the unthinkable when you're in there. So you have to do the unthinkable when you train. So I would say that probably my last kickboxing fight and then my first pro boxing match. First pro boxing match was awesome. I worked so hard. It's like it brought me to an entirely new level. It brought me from the level of thinking as an amateur, where I'm training to get things right. I went to a new level where I train where I don't get it wrong.
Exactly. You can't afford to make a mistake.
Yeah, it's a whole nother story, a whole nother league of people that I'm training with at a different caliber. So that was probably my most memorable fight because of the experience of being around so many people that were doing so well in the sport. Vargas was on the card.
Yeah,
Vernon
exactly.
Forrest was on the card. Chavez was on the card.
Chavez, that's great.
Michael Buffer was announcing, so it was a good night.
Yeah, it was a great night. That's great. Do you have any Muay Thai? What Muay Thai background? Did you train with any Muay Thai fighters or train in Muay Thai?
I have. Actually, go ahead.
What is the difference between Muay Thai and American kickboxing? What would you say?
Well, there's 3 basic divisions in kickboxing, and they're going to be slightly different. So one of them is what you call full contact rules, and that's what I started with. And I mean, I know that you were top ranked in the world too when you're doing that.
Yes.
With that, with full contact rules, all the kicks are above the waist. Same gloves and everything. You can box.
Right.
Boot to boot sweeps where you kick someone's feet out from under them were legal.
Right.
But there were no leg kicks.
Right.
Then later on, they started with what they call freestyle kickboxing. With that, you could actually kick to the legs, perhaps to a knee. With Muay Thai, that's probably the closest to actual real physical combat you can get. With Muay Thai, you can use elbows, you can use knees, you can clinch. You actually fight out of a thing called a plum where you actually wrap up someone's neck.
Right.
So it's a lot more brutal and there's a lot more parts of your body you can use when you fight with that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, they use elbows, they use knees, they use everything.
Everything, yeah.
Okay. Why do you think that American kickboxing? Why did they kind of water it down a little bit, or what was the reasoning behind that?
I mean, it's going to depend. Like I would say from a promoter standpoint, and this is also my personal opinion, it's like if you're talking about a show, the number one thing behind promoting something is putting butts in the seat.
Right.
So if people don't want to come and watch it, then they're not going to show up. So with Muay Thai, like what you'll have a lot of the times, you have a lot of technical infighting that goes on, where guys are wrapped up and they're throwing knees, so it doesn't look like there's that much action.
Right.
With kickboxing, like full contact rules, you'll see spinning kicks. So it's more of a spectacle. It's something that people want to watch.
Right, exactly. A lot more action.
Exactly.
Okay, at your gym, do they offer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submission holds and submission fighting?
Absolutely. I have 2 great guys. One of them, Hany Lee, he's actually from Brazil. He just moved here about 6 months ago. He's the only black belt from Brazil in our city, in Austin. And he's awesome. He came up here just to make a name for himself and actually fight, to make a name for himself and build up a clientele. Only reason why he's here, and we got lucky enough to get him at the gym. I have a submission wrestling coach, Jason Carr. He's actually a Hall of Famer. And with mixed martial arts, which is what everyone's doing these days, you kind of have to have both aspects. There's certain takedowns and certain reversals that submission wrestlers have,
right.
That people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu don't have. And then, of course, you have to have the stand-up part, too.
Exactly.
Which is where I come in.
Yeah. We ask each guest, every time we have a show, we ask each guest to show us their 3 favorite techniques. Would you do that for us?
Absolutely. Let's go do it.
All right.